How's it going, YouTube? Coming to you today with another video. And today, guys, what to bring to you is a large podcast with the new ban list. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun because there's a lot to talk about. And we're going to be going over a lot of individual cards and a lot of other different topics that we'll just kind of dip into today. But for now, if everyone wants to just introduce themselves.
Yo, what's up, guys? I'm Tatsym, old pro Yu-Gi-Oh player. I'm here to joke on the ban list as well, just like the others. Happy to be here.
Hey y'all, I'm Eva. I'm on Twitter as @EvaLise, and I stream on Twitch as @EvaLise as well on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
What's going on, you guys? Slim here, true OG here. Been here since day one, 2002. You already know, probably the oldest person here, probably been here the longest, but we keep rolling with every list that keeps coming. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. So thank you, GG, for having me here today.
Of course.
It's your boy Spanko, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here. We have a lot to talk about today. A lot of stuff happened today, so I'm kind of excited. And thank you for having me, GG.
Absolutely. What would you all say was the craziest change to this list?
I want someone to go first because I feel like mine is going to be weird.
You guys can go.
No, you guys go ahead. Mine's going to be weird, so I want to go last.
Ben 10 to 3.
No, dude. Yeah. It's a sign.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's a sign.
Yeah. That's my take. That was genuinely it. I was surprised they put it to 3. Like, why? But sure.
Make things easier. Let me see. Let me look over this again. Probably for me, a pointer and reboot were the biggest shock. Like reboot getting banned and a pointer going to 1. I was super happy for Nadir Servant to come to 3 just because I like normal summoning Alistair. So that was cool. That was like my favorite part of the list. Everything else was just like,
oh no, we're going back to normal summon Alistair.
Yes. No. Yeah, we never stopped.
It's a different normal summon. It's
we
been
never
5
stopped.
years.
No, we never stopped. I'm gonna just set Guru pass. We're good.
It's almost like Slim has been playing this game for too long. He likes.
Oh, you know, just long enough. 20 years, good enough.
I mean, I'd say probably Spellbook of Judgment coming back to 1. I mean, we saw that happening in the OCG, so it wasn't like big shock, the most surprising thing in the world. But it's going to be interesting to see the applications for it. I mean, you know, GG, you talked a bit about like, you know, doing like Spellbook Striker stuff, but I'm interested to see like what Endymion builds are going to do with it. Like, I think there's going to be some interesting applications for it. I think the rest of the ban list, like, I'm just glad to see Red Reboot gone. I hate that card, and people, like, I was talking with people about it, and they're like, well, how do we have, like, an instant win button against trap decks? I'm like, you don't. But you have 3 Lightning Storm. You have Duster. You have 3 Twin Twisters. You have Cosmic Cyclone. You have Evenly Matched. Like, you have plenty of stuff to deal with back row decks. Just not an instant win button anymore. So...
Yeah, but then you got to think about cards like Eradicator and B-Barrier, and then there's virtually no answer for it.
But if you're having if you have hand traps like Nibiru or Imperm or something like that, or like anything that can stop those cards from coming out, whether you're hitting the Curious or you're hitting the Griffin or something.
You're almost someone Robina.
Yo, that's
speaking my language.
Okay, so
that's something we have to talk about too.
Speaking my language.
This might be completely copium, and this might be a very bad take, but I'm gonna say it. All right, I'm gonna say it. So if by leaving Mystic Mine legal means that Konami is telling combo players they have to main back row out, they should have left Red Reboot legal and told the back row decks they have to play hand traps.
Okay.
Net hand traps.
I agree actually with your Red Reboot take. I know like Eradicator and stuff is a thing, but I agree with that because I feel like it's a card, and we were talking about this earlier, but it's a card that needs to be at 0 or 3. It's kind of like called by in my opinion. But there's one card that I kind of wanted to talk about, and this might be because GG brought up Mystic Mine, right? The Wall of Revealing Light being unlimited. Okay, so I know that's really random. But Wall of Revealing Light is like the bootleg Mystic Mine, right? Like, you can't attack after you pay life points. And I don't know, and I'm not trying to be like a controversial person here, but it's like, bro, Konami brings that card back to 3, and they don't even touch Mystic Mine. And I feel like that's like a big, like, hey, we know what you want, and we're not giving it to you kind of thing. I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that's just me, but I'm just like, bro, like, that's so random.
There's like FTKs with that card. That's why it was banned.
No, I know that's why it was banned originally. But I'm just saying it coming back to 3 now is what was funny. But a pointer to 1 actually was kind of surprising to me. That one was definitely something that I was kind of like, it's an answer to a lot of things, and they kind of just removed an answer, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah,
It's way too
I
weird.
definitely. Yeah, I agree. It was interesting because I mean I always try to use semi logic whenever doing a ban list thing, like looking at okay, what have we seen? And everyone knows a pointer was in like side decks for like the first part of this new format, like
Yeah.
before the list. It was like a staple. Like every deck profile I saw had it. And then come Niagara, or maybe even before that, but come Niagara, Johnny and I profile people. I guarantee I don't think I saw a single pointer like in any side deck. Like
So that's
it was like crazy.
That's
It
kind of
just like
what's like.
phased out.
Yeah, that's kind of why I thought it was weird, because I thought the same thing, where I didn't see the Niagara profiles, all of them, but I did notice that it kind of phased out even within like locals and the local scene and stuff. So sometimes I it makes me think, like, do they have these ban lists almost like, ready to go for a certain while before they bring it out? Like, what do you guys think
Yeah.
on that? That's
No,
just
it's-
something I'm curious about.
It's true.
You think that, right?
They made it before the YCS.
Because yeah, for me it felt like this ban list was a little bit late. I don't know if that's just me, but
No,
I feel like
we
this...
know that. That's fact.
Okay,
It's not
well,
like
there
written
you go.
down anywhere, but we've heard.
No, there we go. That's all. That's the question I wanted to answer. Because like for me, I really, when I saw this ban list the first time, and like when I did my reaction video, right, I was like, because I didn't have it spoiled for me, so when I was reacting to it, I was like, it feels like we should have had this a month ago. Like, I feel like this ban list would have made sense a month ago, right? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I'm still on the fact that like Ronin Totem just got banned, and that's kind of wild. I don't think that was the correct hit. I think that's a massive hit, and we'll talk about that later on in the video because that's one of the topics. But I feel like people are coping on that card being banned being fine, but I think that that's going to hurt Sprite a lot more than people realize, and we'll talk about that.
It's fine.
I agree with that.
I definitely don't think that Sprite is like, I don't think Sprite can keep up with tier until Sprint comes out for them. I don't think it can keep up with it now, because you've lost, one card Elf plus Toad with it, with starter. So
Yeah.
like I don't really see it, and I think the hit to Ronin kind of makes sense if you're trying to hit Sprite, because like what's Konami losing out on from like Ronin Toad not being picked up? Like people buying freezing chains. Like,
Yeah.
like nobody's buying the ice barrier structure deck for that. So
Yeah, it was definitely surprising, and so kind of just leaning into some cards here that are on or off the ban list. The first one, I just kind of wanted to get the most obvious one out of the way, talking about Mystic Mine. This is a card that everyone's rallied for. This is something that everyone's really been vocal about, especially on Twitter, talking about this card just needs to be banned. And it's very shocking, honestly, this card didn't get banned. And I know that a lot of people were like, oh, it probably won't get banned, but like you got to look at it this way too, is the fact that we all rallied for IO. IO got banned the next format.
Yeah,
we rallied behind that card. We're like, this card needs to go. And so we've been rallying behind Mystic Mine now for like 3 formats, and it's still here. And so that's crazy to me. And I've said this multiple times. This is quite literally the same situation with Maxi and the OCG. It's just like they just won't ban it for no reason. It just stays. And so I think that's going to be the same thing with mine. No matter how many people complain about it, it's just going to be here. That's crazy.
For me, it's the fact that I don't want to be one of those guys who just gets salty over Mystic Mine, but it's just the fact that you can put it up so easily, in a lot of decks. Like, I'm not even talking about Striker and stuff, which obviously Striker can, but it's like I think so. Jesse Con actually posted I don't know if it was like a meme list or whatever, it probably was, but Jesse Con posted up a list with like Runic, Spellbook, with like the Demise of the Land, and I'm like, what's enjoyable about this? You know what I mean? Like, I understand the logic of people needing an answer, and like Mystic Mine is an answer to certain things. That's fine. But then there's like the decks that kind of like abuse it, where I'm like, okay, man, like I'm just gonna like scoop it up here, because if I don't draw my out in the next like 3 turns, I'm getting decked out. And I know being decked out by mine in certain decks is not a real thing, but in something like Runic, that's very possible, right? So yeah, I'm surprised this card. I thought it would be at 1. Like the fact that 3 Demise is still around, Metaverse is still around. This is still at 3. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I was memeing they would at least hit Demise, and they didn't even do that. So like,
yes, if they did
that's
that,
wild.
I'd be like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's the fact that you have to deal with more than one mine. Like, if you out the first one, it doesn't matter. They'll just put the second one up. Like, that's kind of where it's like, even if I main deck back row hate, how many times am I gonna draw my Cyclone or Twin Twister? You know, like how many am I gonna open?
Without there
Right?
being a dark bribe or a judgment.
Or yeah, exactly.
I question whether they're like doing this because this is essentially like an attempt at a brute force tactic to slow the game down, but it doesn't actually slow the game down. It just decreases the consistency of combo decks because you have to play a Galaxy Cyclone or like you have to play a Twin Twisters or a Cosmic or something. It doesn't actually slow the game down because it's just like, oh, if they draw that, then yeah, there's going to be a problem for that deck. But like if they want to slow the game down, they have to take a more holistic look at the game, and they have to take a look at the combo decks that they're making and not have these things that are just making some of the most ridiculous end boards you've ever seen. I mean, if you're looking at a if you're looking at a tier limit board, a danger tier limit board, a Lunalight tier board, and they've got like Spell Canceller, Elf, 2 to 3 negate Appaloosa on the board. Like these, there's so many things about this board that you can't really crack. Snow in the Graveyard, maybe a Kikalos on board with the like Solik or something. It's more about the actual power of the decks rather than just slapping down this card.
You
So-
want to realize something funny?
Go ahead, Tatsum.
Konami Europe doesn't make the decks. They all are thought of in the OCG.
Well,
So,
I was
having
just about
mine
so I was just
Has
about
nothing to do with game design. It's just
Well-
Konami Europe wanting to have Mystic Mine in their game.
Yeah, so I was gonna bring up exactly what Tatsum brought up, but I was also gonna like echo kind of what Eva said because I don't think it's the decks that are necessarily too powerful. Some of them are and can be, and I know the OCG does this. So this is not about Mystic Mine per se. This is more about like the combo decks thing you were talking about. It's like okay, Gigantic Sprite had a restriction where you're stuck to level 2s. Starter had a restriction, but then all of a sudden Elf doesn't, and I'm like, I feel like a lot of these cards, even the cards that are banned like Union Carrier, those just like examples like that. It's like if it had just said like one monster plus one Union monster, or like Elf would like lock you into level 2s, or it needs 2 level 2s to make it kind of thing. I feel like a lot of these like very heavy combo decks where Mystic Mine is kind of like Konami's way to be like, hey, we're gonna nerf these combo decks by having Mystic Mine legal. And I understand that that's a TCG perspective because like the cards are obviously made in the OCG, but I feel like it's an inherent flaw with like a lot of card design because like there's no reason, for example, Elf just because it's the most relevant one right now. There's no reason Elf should be not locking you into level 2s, or the fact that it needs it doesn't need 2 level 2s, it needs 1, right? So that's I feel like is an inherent like card design in my flaw in card design.
It doesn't even just need a level 2. You can use a link 2. That's my favorite.
Oh, there you go. That's what I mean, right? That's what I mean.
I love going and just summoning Dark and then targeting like Gizmek and then making them use the Gizmek, or targeting a Kit, making them use Snow. And then I could even get like hand trapped in my Dark, right? And then I just turn my Dark and a monster into Elf, summon back Merrily, and just go crazy. And it's like, why am I allowed to do this? Like, this is so ridiculous. And so like there's so many crazy cards that come out. And I agree with you on like the fact that it should have just been like a hard lock on 2s for Elf, especially because like in my opinion, Elf is just much better than Gigantic. Both cards are very good in their own respect, but like Elf is way more splashable. That card's crazy. Any final takes on mine?
It's fine. I don't care.
That's of course you don't care. You're not playing. You're not playing this game right now.
I haven't been Mystic Mind in 3 months. I don't know the problem, guys. I honestly can't see it.
I have a pretty like very cutthroat, straightforward mentality, just like in this game, just being competitive for as many years as I have, and it's just you just roll with the punches.
Yeah,
you roll with the punches, and complaining really just kind of like it just in general really doesn't get you anywhere. Like I think that's the thing that sucks, is I think that's what separates a lot of like players who really understand the game versus who just love to complain. And I mean, of course, social media is the easiest place for people to complain, but it's funny to say like, oh my gosh, like all these terrible cards are out, all these things that stop you from playing, but attendance has never been higher. Like people are still buying a bunch of product. Like there's just so many positive things that Konami sees like in their eyes, and it's just like, well, the real players who really love the game, just they roll with the punches and adapt. Like we've played in ridiculous formats, like playing in Teledeath format in 2008, like to even think about like how much the cards were like getting crush carded is like I'd rather get Mystic Mind than getting crush carded for like my whole hand and like what I draw. Like it was so devastating back in the day. It's like I think that's just the thing is like I've learned, and I know a lot of like my group have learned, like we're not gonna change. We're not gonna make an influence on the ban list as much as we think we are as players. Like we can voice our opinion, but at the end of the day, whatever list we get, you have a decision to make. You either accept it and find a way to play, or you sit out. And there's nothing wrong with sitting on the sidelines for a format or two. So many players have done it and then just come back when the format's better. And I think that's what separates, I think, a good player from a great player is that they can say, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to take a break. I'll come back when I'm ready. And I think that's just something that I've learned over the years, and I think a lot of players have like learned that over the years that you kind of just have to roll with it, and it's just like Mystic Mind's still in the format, so nothing really, nothing's really changed on that aspect. But we're not always going to get the list we want, but we just roll with it, and things eventually figure themselves out.
I think the game is actually in a good state right now, like overall. Like I actually have been having so much fun with the game. I'm gonna be honest with you, like Poe kind of brought out decks that were meta relevant, changed the format without having to nerf these other decks, right? So like if I want to play Sword Soul, I still can, but obviously we know Sword Soul is like not hit on the ban list, but it's kind of phased out, right? I actually think that's a kind of a decent approach. It just, I guess there's certain cards people don't want, right? Like the IO thing you mentioned, Mystic Mind now, I guess. But I think the game is not bad. Like I'm loving the game right now. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, you're high.
Really? Tatsym, you haven't played in 3 months, all right, buddy?
Doesn't fucking exist, dude. All the decks from last format, they don't exist. Why? Not because they're nerfed. It's because everything that just released, Tier and Sprite, is like the most insane fucking shit ever. I see those decks and I'm like, holy fuck, I'm almost happy I am not playing. They released like Duelist Alliance times 15. The power creep is batshit crazy. The prices of the cards are fucking insane. The game's in a horrible state. Everyone is complaining, and you're sitting here like, no, it's good. It's fine.
I actually think it's fine. I actually don't think it's that bad. And the game is actually not in a horrible state. Yes, stuff has gotten phased out, but I feel like also a part of it. Of course, Tier. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna say Tier or Sprite are not the best decks. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I feel like a lot of it is also like people are bored of using older cards, so they want to play newer stuff, right? Like I feel like that always happens over time.
And Snow.
And what? Sorry.
And
like
Snow.
Curious and Snow.
No, but see, that's the thing. Curious and Snow are like great cards. That's what I mean. I don't think the whole game. And I mean, Snow's banned now, right?
Storm.
You say this about the game, and yes, like on the whole, Tier and Sprite are decks that are doing some wild things that are more than a lot of the other decks are. But when you look at, and they might take a lot of the top cut representation, when you look at who's actually been winning the YCSs, neither Tier nor Sprite has.
They don't have a single top.
YCS yet.
They have no. They don't have a single win.
No, but that doesn't mean it's fine. That
No,
means
of course.
That doesn't mean it's fine.
No, that's
not okay.
I think
wrong.
we're not, no, but we're not saying that's fine. I'm not trying to justify like the whole Curious Griffin, Nightmare Griffin lock combo stuff. Like I'm not trying to justify all that. But if you think about Tier as a deck, Tier out the gate was kind of bad until people kind of started realizing, hey, the better cards in Tier are not the Tier cards. Like after a while, right?
Well, to be honest, Tier was just a lot less straightforward than Sprite was. Sprite
was
pretty linear.
The learning curve was higher.
But like people already knew that Tier was a better deck out the gate, though. Like people it took time because if you look at the OCG and you saw just how good Tier was doing, even when Sprite was like supposedly Tier 0. Like, people did not care when they were playing Tier. They just realized it was the better deck, and they played that. So, out the gate, like, Sprite did better because it was very linear. People knew what to do with it. But, like, once we figured out what to do with Tier, it was just unbelievable. So, like, I think that the format is pretty unhealthy, like, with where it's at with certain cards. Like, you could have literally, like, spun a circle and then thrown a dart at it, and any card it landed on would have justifiably been fine in the ban list. So, like, I think that's the problem in a format when there's that many cards that could be hit, especially in the format that we're in now currently before the new one. It's been miserable the last couple of weeks because, like, you just play, and I went to locals and I spit out 3/4 of my deck, like, doing a combo, and then my opponent just goes Mystic Mind, and I'm like, sick, scoop. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, you do have to roll with the punches, and you have to realize that that's in the game, but it doesn't make it a healthy game state.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be healthy. It's just more like, okay, no, sorry. Okay, I think maybe I'm saying this wrong. I'm not trying to say like this is the best game state we've ever had, right? That's not what I mean. But I mean in terms of player. Pardon?
It's not great.
No, it's not. I mean, it kind of. I mean, I played through Goki format where it was just U-Link format. I played through these bad formats. Don't get me wrong. But I think right now it's just there's so much, because we're talking from a competitive standpoint, us, right? But I'm talking about the game as a whole. Like, there's a lot of people having fun with a lot of different decks. Like, Hero just got their, like, Neos support, right? And people might laugh at it, but it's like there's a lot of Hero players and, like, Neos players, right? So they're having fun and joining the game. So that's what I mean as a game as a whole. Like, that's why the numbers are a lot better now. Because we're talking specifically or from a competitive, like, high-tier standpoint, because we're competitive players. But as a whole thing, like, I feel like it's actually not in a bad state because all of the they're really catering to everyone, really, right? Or I guess the casuals more so than the competitive players, if that makes more sense.
Someone has to go 0-3 at the YCS. So you're right.
Yeah, that's what I'm not trying to say like from a competitive standpoint completely, right? I'm just saying as a whole.
Yeah.
Hey, look! If you're enjoying the game, dude, I don't care. Have fun. And I'm just trying to give you like a little perspective. Like, there is a very big flip side to this, and you are ignorantly ignoring it right now, and that's okay, because if you're having fun, then who cares, right? But the game is really not in a good state right now.
No, but I'm not ignoring it. I'm just saying from the other perspective, right? Like, because you just said the numbers are better than they've ever been, right? And that's what they see.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why the numbers are better than what they've ever been. I understand our perspective because we're competitive players. I'm saying as a whole, there's a reason why the numbers are so good, right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are other decks right now. I know Evo was saying that, like, the Labyrinth deck is really fun right now. I know for me, I really like Marincess right now. I think that deck is really cool. That was, like, the other deck that I've been playing, and it's been kind of, like, local scene, or, like, just been playing it just because I've been kind of, like, tired of the format at the moment. But, like, at the same point, there are other decks that you can play right now. No, I don't think that the game is very healthy at the moment. But, like, even with the Banlist, again, they just missed a lot. Like, a lot.
They did. Oh, yeah. No, 100%.
I personally wanted to see a reboot to 3 as well, but that's just me.
There you go. There you go.
I will fight all of you.
I like that card. I think it's pretty neat. But moving on from Mystic Mine, I do want to talk about the next set of very cool cards that we got back from the ban list. One being Steam the Cloak. The card's so good. But we also have O-Lion. I think both of these cards are going to be very interesting. One thing that I mentioned in my ban list reaction video is that O-Lion specifically says if this card is sent to the graveyard, so it's not a specific like way that has to go, you can mill it and summon a token, which is pretty nice. I like that a lot. You can also just go ahead and mill Steam the Cloak, and then you can also just do a lot of combos with that too. But the funnier thing with Steam the Cloak that I realized is that the token is an aqua, so it's definitely going to be an interesting time with both of these cards. You can fuse with that token because the fusion materials don't have to specifically go to a destination. So I think that's really neat too. It's kind of the same thing when you use like a Rhino Heart that's already been reborn off its own effect. So I think both of these cards are going to be pretty high impact. I think that'll be really interesting because there's a lot of cards we see on the ban list that we're like, oh, that card won't really do anything, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think these cards really will. What are all your thoughts on this?
Honestly, honestly, I was going to say Steam I think is going to be a little bit better than O-Lion. Yep. Yeah, I think that's the case. I don't know all the implications just yet. I mean, like you said, the water token is, or the aqua, I mean, token specifically, is pretty good. But I don't think O-Lion's going to be, without Hulk, I don't think O-Lion's going to be doing too much.
I mean, O-Lion's a 2.
Yeah.
O-Lion's a 2.
It being a 2 is interesting, I'll be honest, but it's a 1 of, right? I don't know. I'll see where O-Lion goes, but I think out the gate, Steam is going to definitely be better, like as a card.
That's fair. I think O-Lion has a lot of potential. I'm probably going to play it in tier. The second that you mill it just becomes an instant body on board is kind of wild.
And the token it generates is a level 3, right?
It's a level 3, yes. So you can't like gigantic summon it, which is unfortunate.
Right, but there's some interesting things that you can do with like Elf or something, where you can make the token then like go for some sort of Synchro 5 play. Shout out to Denglong if he could have come back too. But
yeah, I think that's really interesting too. That's a good point.
Hey.
I was just reading them. That's why I'm sorry. I'm just reading them.
Yeah, O-Lion is really interesting in particular, though. The fact that it is level 2, you can go ahead and normal summon this and special a Sprite, and then if you do want to make something like Herald of the Arclight too to protect your combo early on,
cool access, yeah.
You have a lot of options with this card. So I do think that it will see a lot of play, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say some stuff with Steam the Cloak, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think players are just gonna experiment with everything. Like we already see all the synergies, and you can imagine what the bigger brain players are gonna do. They always tend to just be in the lab. They see the synergy, they're gonna test it out. Some things might work, some things might not. But like the little intricacies, like especially the fact that the token from Steam is an Aqua. What's crazy is I played that in a Danger like FTK, like World FTK deck, and honestly, I never even noticed. It was one of those things you just didn't notice. You cared about the token, you cared about like link climbing. You didn't even think about the fact that it was an aqua token, or that it was even awkward that it was an aqua token. But now you mentioned it, it's just like like that's like actually
random
crazy.
synergies.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes players like excited to test like cards when they come off, because like as weird as it is, they come off at a certain time when those little intricacies actually matter. So it's really interesting to see like what players are going to come up with. I give it a couple days and we'll have some or I give Lithium a couple hours. And he's already got Sprite up. Like I'm expecting Tier Element by later tonight or first thing in the morning. So I already know we're gonna have some blueprints to go off of. So it'll be interesting. But
yeah, there's some cool things that you can do. I mean, like the token being Wind Aqua isn't great for like the actual Blackwing deck, but
which is crazy.
Like,
a Blackwing card.
Yeah, because Gofu is amazing for a Blackwing deck.
Oh, I miss Gofu.
Gofu, because I mean Gofu, if you have that, like right now, that's a use the tokens, make a Wise Strix. You can like do like before your normal summon, you can make like a Wise Strix, Ravenous Crocosaur and stuff for an extra draw just off of Gofu. But the and getting Zephyros in the graveyard. But with Steam, there's some things you can do in the Blackwing deck because of the new cards in Darkwing Blast, like the Blackfeather Whirlwind is a soft once per turn monster reborn. So you can use Steam and you can loop it like 2 to 3 times, depending on if you like opened it or something. You could loop it like that. So it does have some interesting things it can do, but it's not. I feel like it's honestly going to be better in tier, but that remains to be seen, I think.
I feel like tier is just so crazy. Like the deck is just so good.
Yeah. Okay, it synergizes with everything randomly. It's dark. The aqua just randomly makes sense. I was gonna expand on what Slim and Eva said, where I'm just gonna keep it short. But it's like I feel like Konami definitely knows what they're doing. Like they know it's an aqua. They know this is why this is the tuner we're specifically gonna bring back on this list. Like they definitely know what they're doing with this.
It's gonna be an interesting format. That's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be an interesting format. The next two I want to talk about though are actually gonna be really cool ones, and I think this is something that everyone guessed was going to happen, and that's Nadir Servant and Fusion Destiny. And these cards are crazy. I'm super excited about these personally. I don't know about any of you, but I heard Ggez is a very cool card. And Nadir Servant is now Ggez. And so
I'm very happy.
You damn right I am. I'm ready to take my tier 3 Alistair deck to locals and go 0-2 drop and to have a blast normal summoning Alistair and Makaba and all that stuff. And honestly, I love the fact that Nadir is back, but I know someone's going to try to do something else with it. I could probably see them putting it in Eldritch like they used to be honest. Like, I just feel like that's the route that it's going to go. I would love for it to be, like, shout out to Joe Dietrich. Like his post, like, we have everything again. We have 3 Fusion Destiny. The only thing we're missing is Verde. And honestly, Verde was just an extra piece that deck. I mean, obviously the deck could make it really easily, but we're just trying to go Mekaba and hard draw, Mekaba and Servant, Mekaba and, Fusion Destiny. When you're done everything, it's just like, it was what we needed. And I mean, I think the deck unfortunately just can't keep up. Like, I got to be honest, I don't think Mekaba with its single negate is enough these days, especially because of the variance of tier elements. I think that's the thing I noticed the most is on the receiving end of tier elements definitely don't control the variance, so you don't know what to prepare for all the time. So it'll be cool just to mess with it, to profile it, and who knows, maybe someone will find a way to make it do something. But I'm just happy to have the 3 back again. And Fusion Destiny, I mean, is cool too. And I'm sure all the hero players are happy just to have their 3 Fusion Destinies. So just like mentioning the semi-limited, like the one thing I still like, I mean, I guess I'm just like, maybe I'm on an island with it. I'm like, I still don't get why Desires is there. It feels so weird.
I don't understand why Tenki is there either.
I think it's so weird because I think it's just like, because I mean, out the gate, if you knew what you were doing as a competitive player years ago when that card got released. You knew this card was absolutely insane. It had a high cost, but it didn't matter. And it was just like...
Wait, Tatsym, say what you're going to say, because I feel like for once me and you are going to be on the same page on something.
Desire should be played at 2.
Yes! Yes!
I have done it in some decks, so I do agree to some extent. I wasn't always on the train to play 3, but there were, in the beginning, I think we all played 3. I think when it first came out, I think the majority, we just were like, screw it, this is pot agreed. Like, we just want to draw.
Guys, this is a really rare
draw 2
moment.
cards. We like to draw cards. We're greedy. We like to draw cards.
It feels good to play 2.
So
literally why
I like
it does. It does because in Striker I played 2 for a little while, but I did switch to 3 because I want to see that when I'm going second. Like if you see Desires in your hand and you're going second, you win that game. Like if that thing does not get ashed, like you were up a card and you're breaking that board. I don't care. Like drawing 2 is great. Like I will always want to do that.
This I know some people may not know me that well, or Tatsym is a little bit more known than me, but this is a very rare occasion. Me and Tatsym don't agree on a lot of things. I remember me and him a while ago. I don't know, Tatsym, if you remember this, but do you remember how we had that Colossus argument?
Yeah.
Me and Tatsym do not agree on a lot of things with this, so this is a big moment. I like this. I like this. It's a new age for me and Tatsym.
Well, I'm glad that y'all are agreeing, but I think that's ridiculous.
No, you're right, Eva. I can openly admit that you're right, but like,
but it feels better. It feels better.
It just feels good. Well, you know what?
It's
well,
like
ratios don't care about your feelings, Tatsym. Okay.
No, it's like the SpongeBob meme, right? So this is you, yes. So this is Desires, yes. This is the math, yes. It shows it's optimal to be played at 3, yes. So do you play it at 3? No, 2.
No, 2. Yeah.
Crazy. You know what the chances are of drawing 2 Desires of a single Desires? Well, 0 if you play 2. So it's an obvious choice.
I love this. I'm having so much fun right now.
When it does come back to 3, though, we will be playing 3.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was this list. I was wrong. That was one of my.
I loved it.
That
They should have never unlimited it. That was the most funny shit ever, dude. I love limiting and semi-limiting unsearchable cards. Is just the most funny shit ever. It's like, Dear Servant, this powerful card, and Fusion Destiny, this powerful card. Can't search them. Have fun.
I think
it's like unplayable. It's so funny.
The Fusion Destiny to 2 is weird because Verte was still around, so I did not understand that one at all. But it being back at 3, I don't think does anything in the format anyways. To truthfully, I think it's not the card itself. I think DPE just kind of phased out.
I think it's gonna be back now.
Yeah.
You think so?
I think with that, I think with bringing Fusion Destiny back to 3, in terms of just like, so if you're bringing Fusion Destiny back to 3, and now you have like 3 good draws and 2 bad ones, you know, like 2 bricks in the deck. Whereas like before with 2 and 2, it's like
it's awkward.
So it's like my chance of drawing Celestial Dasher is just as high as drawing the good card. So, but I think there's probably some more people who are going to want to experiment with it because
definitely
you're going to have a higher chance to see those rather than the bricks. And if you resolve it, then the bricks are out, you know, except for the other copies of Fusion Destiny that you have in your deck. So.
Yeah, and so kind of talking about like how that engine was so broken, I think that it's gonna be really interesting too because mine is still legal with DPE too. And I think that combination was always so ridiculous, is like having a DPE live under mine and just continuously popping your opponent's board every turn. And then like you get to the point when like you'd want your mind to like go away so you can just like bring it back, pop your mind, and then pop something else and then like go for game. And I thought that was always ridiculous. So like, I don't know, maybe we'll see a big return in DPE. I think that it's really good against decks like Sprite. Is it very good against decks like Tier Lament? Probably not. But at the same point, I think that we'll still probably see DP in some capacity. But I did want to mention something too, just because I was talking about this earlier and I said we talk about it later. But so my craziest hit on this ban list was still Ronin Totem. And so for the reason being though, is that when you're playing against Sprite, if you crack the initial board, and so they don't have anything left, they might have like startered someone in blue and they added like Jet, or like they have a couple cards in hand, but they would be on the same playing field if they normal summon anything, if you just like negated it, if you like snow booked it, if you did anything that you were going to do. Because they still had Ronin Totem in the graveyard, and so that would just be a free summon, and then you're immediately back on the board. Now what do you do? Like, that's kind of crazy because you don't have something in your grave that's just a free summon anymore. So, like, you have to strictly rely off what's in your hand, and it feels like you're just going to lose into a normal summon situation for a second time. And so, for the later game, like the grind game and a simplified game state, I feel like Sprite is going to lose that battle. That's kind of crazy. This is a very large hit. I think it would have been better off to like limit Swap Frog. But this feels like a really harsh hit to me. Like, a Substitute is back, but it is relatively just unsearchable. It's a level 1. You have to tribute other monsters. You can tribute itself too, but typically you want to like keep it on the board. So I don't know. I think that it's a really interesting situation for the deck to be in at the moment.
I think people are underestimating how big of a hit this is. Like, just not having recursion in any deck is kind of it's kind of a big deal in the mid to late game, right? So yeah, I actually agree with everything you just said. Like, I don't have anything more to say. I just agree with you.
Well, obviously, you just make totally awesome using Swap Frog and Kiss to Kill Frost in the live turn version, of course.
Yeah.
Just what?
There's a lot of people that are like, yeah, well, we just used a Dark Beckoning Feast now, and we can end on like Toad and whatnot still. And I'm like, is that better though? Because I'm pretty sure we all cut that card. Like, there are reasons why cards get removed from the deck, and there are reasons why we don't play certain things. So I don't really know if that's just like 110% the answer at that point. So
like a couple of times in the 8 years that I have played, where like a ban list came out and it was just like, all right, someone at Konami decided we will not be playing these cards anymore.
Yep.
Like, out of nowhere, like a small engine, a small this, or it's just really out of the blue. It's like, okay, I guess it's dumb. It's like they could have just banned Toad, which would have been fine, and everyone would be like, okay, that's understandable. But then
I
we
feel
still
like that's what people were expecting.
Yeah, and then we still have the engine, but someone there just said, you know what, the whole frog stuff, it's gone, and I do not understand why. It's extremely harsh. The deck was fine. You hit like a lot of rogue decks, which you also would have hit if Toad was banned, but that would have been recoverable. Now we just have like a Toad that's like, I guess you can summon it off Bahamut Shark or something. It's just the weirdest place for that archetype to be in. It's like you almost have this tier 1 meta deck, and then you hit like the good card, and everyone's like, yeah, that's, of course they would do that, but it's not. It's like this old ass archetype. Ronin is like what, like 10 years old at this point, and all of a sudden it's banned, and it's just so extreme.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where like I don't really know if that was the way to go about hitting the deck, just because like I don't know, you go with all these pile decks too, and I mentioned this in my reaction, is that like there's so many pile decks that happen in like the previous format, and like maybe they just don't want pile decks again because everyone was splashing in frogs to like every deck lately. But like at the same point, I don't really know if it's that good. Like, it's not in everyone's list.
I kind of agree with Tatsym, like them hitting, because what I noticed is recently within maybe I'm mistaken, but within the last few ban lists, I kind of noticed that when they hit decks, they haven't been hitting decks directly anymore. Like, they don't really hit names here in the TCG as much as they hit the stuff surrounding decks. At least in previous years, right? Because like I remember before, like, you know, when like Pepe was a thing or Cosmo was a thing, like they had to hit those names. Versus now, I feel like again, like the Ronin hit is like supposed to be a Sprite hit because they were never gonna hit a Sprite name kind of thing, right?
Money.
Yeah, well, obviously that I agree. That's what I'm saying. But that's why I found it weird, because they hitting Ronin, I guess, like makes sense for this ban list, but at the same time, it also I think as a general thing doesn't really make sense to hit a random Ronin, because I think it does more collateral damage than it does to tier, if that makes sense.
Does it?
I mean, not like in a meta sense, no. But again, it's kind of like when you mentioned like the people who wanted to play other kind of decks. Like I know Crush Cards was talking about like Paleo Frogs, for example, right? Which obviously is not a meta deck, but it's like it becomes a lot harder to play that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and it's also like a fan favorite too, right? So
exactly.
Like that's something that, I mean, it's gonna be collateral at some point, like a lot of these decks end up being, is because usually it's not like the deck, it's like one card, and then it's just like the best card in that deck, and all of a sudden it's gone. So I definitely agree that Totally Awesome probably should have just been the one that got banned, because like you can still use the frogs in like really cool ways as like an engine, but at the same point I feel like it definitely was a weird route to take Ronin Totem, especially giving us back Substitute, because I feel like that can't really lead to anything good, just because like we already know that card's gonna get broken in some capacity at some point, but it's like to me, I'm like, come on now, right? Like, we could have done anything in that deck. And I think swap to 1 or banning Toad, but Ronin Toad, that's my rant on that card. I don't know. I was just like, that was the one thing in the list today that I was just like, there's no shot. So this card also being banned, this was something else that I was kind of like, really? Like, are we really doing this right now? Because, I don't know, there's a lot of people who are very 50-50 on this card. So it's either you want it at 3 or 0. And I feel like Called By should have been banned as well. And I definitely agree. This is something that also Brian from Crush Crowd mentioned too. And it's like the same capacity of a card, Red Reboot, kind of applies to the same thing as Called By the Grave. And they both should have either been at 3 or 0. And so with Red Reboot, though, I feel like this is the direct answer to cards like Eradicator, which is so devastating. Back to what Slim said earlier about being Crush card. Like, it's so bad when it's bad. And so the other thing, too, is like D-Barrier. Like, that card's also fairly rough. I know it's not as rough as it used to be, but like there's still certain situations where that card is very unfortunate. And so you need a lot of situations where this card would just come up. And so I don't really know if it's correct just to get rid of it. Because, like, yes, you can be a combo deck, and yes, you can play all the back route you want. But at the same point, there's still going to be a lot of situations where, like, you might play, like, 3 twins, and then those 3 twins just aren't enough against, like, 5 floodgates. But it's like Red Reboot would be, like, the one answer for the turn. And so I don't really love the fact that this card's banned. I would have wanted it at 3. But I want to hear what everyone else has to say.
Should be banned. Should have been. It should have never been printed. Actually, it's too much. It's actually ridiculous shutting off a third of the game. Now I have to completely agree with you on the fact that I think that this card should have been banned on this list together with 3 other traps, because the problem, like you said, isn't like floodgates. They are on the field. You can remove them, and like you can out a Solemn Strike, you know, by activating Lightning Storm. But there are just some traps right now in the game. Anything that lingers is in Yu-Gi-Oh! Also already a problem. But you have like these 3 traps right now. Like Barrier was like the worst card in existence last format.
True.
And like if you played Despia, it was literally, I hope I draw the 1 in 40, otherwise I will just lose this game. That's not okay. And now you have Eradicator, which is ridiculous. And then you have the Flunder, the Harpy's Feather
Storm. Yeah.
Storm. It's like, these cards should really not exist. But if you have Reboot legal, trap decks can't exist. I'm not sure if any of you have. I know that Eva obviously is playing trap decks because she's very enthusiastic about the card being banned. But I've been playing traps for quite a while right now, and it's just it's the worst feeling ever that my opponent drew a card, and it's not even like Storm or like Duster, because it's like fine because you can countermeasure that. But it's like, oh, you had Reboot, okay, I guess that was it. You're just sitting at like a tournament with a strategy that should be viable, but your opponent drew. Well, back in the day, it was the 3-off, which was also unfair. Like, they had the out, and there is either judgment, I guess, or yeah, you just drop this round. It's ridiculous. That should never ever be the case.
I actually wanna agree with. This is gonna sound weird, but I kind of agree with both of you. I agree with Tatsym where like lingering effects is just kind of dumb, and the fact that Red Reboot itself also has like a lingering effect in the sense where it's kind of like you shut off your turn. If I'm playing like a trap based deck and I have like 4 set, and that's my whole board, right? Shutting off my turn is just crazy. I'm gonna lose that turn, right? Because the 4K life points doesn't matter. But at the same time, I kind of see where GG's coming from. It's like I like the 3 of because there are cards in the game that need to be answered. So that's kind of why I'm saying like I'm in between both of you guys, where it's like, you know, it's hard because now we have 0 answer to some of these trap cards. But at the same time, Red Reboot is just, you know, your turn's over kind of card. So I feel like it's a weird situation Konami's in where either they have to print another card similar to Red Reboot that can answer trap cards, but not as powerful as Red Reboot, or like maybe potentially on a future list. I mean, obviously it didn't happen on this list, but in the future list, get rid of cards that are just kind of like, yeah, these cards don't have an out, right? You know, your Cosmic Cyclone Twin Twisters don't matter against D-Barrier or other cards like that, right? So yeah, I'm kind of in the middle.
You gave me a
just
good
play
idea.
trap stun.
True.
No, just print a counter trap that you can activate from hand by paying half your life points, but it only negates the traps currently on the field.
Yeah, there you go. Like that's what I mean. They could print something similar to Reboot. But yeah, no, the fact that it just
What's the difference between that though? Like
That
negating what's on the
Your
field.
turn doesn't fucking end.
Well, like if you have 5 sets and you're playing it, because like it's gonna be set 5 pass, and then you have 5 like traps on your board.
So let's say you're playing against Eldritch, like
Okay.
you summon, what's it called?
Roller?
Rose. And I activate Ggez in match or something.
Oh, okay.
And you activate like Cyclone on or Twin Twister, and I activate Judgment, and then you activate that card. Then I traded 2 of my cards, which I feel is better than my turn. At least I have 3 other cards. It guarantees that the player who's using it can finish their action at best, which I do think is very valuable. And it lets the other player interact with it later in the turn. It's still really broken, and it's still really, I would say, more advantageous for the player activating the card from the hand. But
So
I feel like
you're saying
gives
face-up
pure
cards.
trap
Like
decks.
face-up cards on.
Yeah,
the field?
like
Oh,
anything
okay.
that's face-up
That would
cards.
fix it. You said
That would
trap
fix it.
cards, and I said
What
that's
if-
literally
what if-
reboot. Like,
No, no,
What if
face-up
they
trap
face
cards.
up before?
Like only
Yeah.
face-up
So
trap
we're
cards.
like,
Yeah.
what?
if it was only
No.
face up, then I could agree with that. I think that'd be fine. But if it was just all traps, it'd be literally reboot again.
I was
But-
I was gonna say, I know, like, I'm not really in the card balancing, making up cards thing, but what if they made a card similar to Nightbeam, where it was kind of like, yeah, like a counter trap, like what Tatsym is saying, but it's kind of like your opponent cannot, or either if it's not a counter trap or it's like a quick play spell, where it's like your opponent cannot like chain the card to the activation of this. So it's like similar to Nightbeam, and obviously it makes it so that if you can chain other things, then it kind of matters. But then at least the trap decks are still kind of playable. Whereas if they have like, if I hit the 1D barrier and they don't have something to flip right away, like that D barrier's gone. I don't know. I feel like they need a different option. But at the same time, I feel like reboot shouldn't be at 3.
I think that the whole conversation is like you're saying, if you just remove those cards, then you still have a lot of obnoxious trap cards. But those are way more fine than Arbitrator Twister Storm, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I think with reboot, it's like if they made something where it was like a generic version of like all the effects of what is it, like Tachyon Transmigration, that like Galaxy Eyes card. But if
Best
they
card.
did that, but if they did that as a red reboot card, where it's like you can activate this card from the hand and it negates all trap effects activated before it in the chain. So like let's say there are 2 trap cards activate in that, and then you just use this. I think that's fine. Like for example, like when I've played like Subterror and I've played Eldritch, yeah, they just flip, they hit you with reboot and you're like, cool, turn's basically over. And like when I'm playing Labyrinth currently, yeah, when they flip this, it's just done. When they do something like Duster, I might have like a backjack in the graveyard that I can use, or like I might have Lord of the Heavenly Prison, something like that. But basically, with reboot, it's like I have to have Judgment, and I have to have used it in response to the reboot, like specifically. Because I can't do anything else. So like I played a game against Sprite where I was playing Tri Brigade, and I had Revolt and Judgment. They go for a normal summon, I Judgment the normal summon, and they reboot it. And I'm just like,
well, now the Revolt's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, the Revolt's dead. So it's like, well, like that's kind of all that's gonna do there. So yeah, I think the thing about this card is that it was just a 1-card answer to trap decks for an entire turn, and with like a trap deck having all of their interactions shut down on that turn, even if they set 5, I think it's just too broken. You have plenty of outs to it. At least with evenly matched, it will still leave like a trap card on the field or something. There might be something I can do with that, but I mean, reboot, it's just, there has been like 1 game in my life where somebody's resolved reboot on me and I've still won the game. So, and that was basically because they misplayed. So, like, it's just too much of an auto win in my opinion.
Or maybe if it's like reboot, but you have no battle phase, something like that.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. It's like Dark Ruler, but for traps. Yeah, Dark Ruler for traps. That'd be amazing.
I think that'd be fine. Like just negate in the chain, and then also just be like, hey, no damage or
GG
no
just
battle.
solved this whole thing.
So that'd be fine. I don't know. I'm always thinking about different ways you can like fix cards and whatnot, just because like we gotta have some kind of way that we can do that. So to kind of wrap up our conversation here, there's one more card that I want to talk about as far as more of like what it's going into, and that's going to be Neko Main King going into the Ishizu tier deck. I think that format's going to be really interesting. I know that this format is the format that we have to play under with this list to go into that, which the next ban list, we're going by the way that things have been every 3 months, won't be till like the end-ish of December. So we have at least a month to play with the new cards, and I believe they dropped like the week into Pasadena as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how far this deck does go.
I think this card's nuts. I didn't even know about it till just before this podcast, to be honest. I think this card is like funny. It's literally a turn ender. That's crazy.
Yeah. This card is a real piece of history, like I said before the podcast, for anyone who's been around as long as I have. This card, the first time I saw this card was back in 2013. I actually pulled it up because I couldn't even remember. When Billy was playing his Mermail deck, the like pure Mermail, just like crazy combo deck. They cited the one copy, and for anyone that played back then or was at the event remembers, it was because of the Gishki loop. Looking back, he cited one copy, and I remember because I actually was fortunate enough to do the deck profile all those years ago, and I remember him specifically saying that I dedicated one spot to my side deck for this card for that exact interaction, to where if obviously it gets milled, it stops their turn, and I can, mount my comeback. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. And it's interesting to see that a card like this, is just something that obviously been forgotten. It's been almost 10 years since I think this card was used. And, we mentioned it before, you can use it with Dark World. There's synergy there. Gemini Imps was one of those cards too that like was just good for any like of the discard effects and stuff. And it's interesting that a card comes back, and it's just, I think it's such an old card. Like the design of it is just really cool for the fact that, it just does, it does actually end the turn, and it says, well, okay, I can make a comeback. Like not all hope is lost. And like, if anyone played in this format, like almost 10 years ago, believe me, like if you were ever on the receiving end of the deck out, the way Gishki did it, it was just, you just didn't want to play anymore. Like you literally just sat there and watched them just, just go in a loop over and over and over again. And if you were smart, like I said, you scooped. But it's like, I think it's interesting to see, like, you have this option, just mill it and cool, pass the turn back. Like it'll be interesting to see though, like even if you mill it, like how far does the Ishizu tier element deck get into, it's all variants again. Like they always joke about the deck being a gamble deck. Well, it's a gamble for both the player and the opponent, because how far will the tier element deck get? How much will it mill out? How much do you lose? How many resources are you going to lose before you mill this card? I think that's the crazy thing. You can either get really lucky and mill it right off the bat and cool, the turn goes back to you, or you could lose the majority of your resources, mill it, end the turn, and still lose the game. So it'll be interesting to see if there's like better countermeasures, but I think it's definitely an interesting card to bring out like after all these years. It's exciting. It's a trip down memory lane for sure. So I welcome it for sure. I'm excited to see what it does.
And it's like, even if it is the end phase of the turn, like if they milled a couple names, it's not going to be like Elf plus IP or whatever, but like you're still going to have like maybe Kit add Havness, maybe be able to spit out like a Dragos Tapelia or like a Kaleido Heart. And if you're smart, before you start milling cards, if you know this in the format, you're setting your Soliac beforehand because you know that that's a possibility. So like there are going to be play rounds. It's going to be like playing around Mech Knights. Like we're just going to do that inherently because we know that cards like this are in the format. So like a lot of people are already prepared for this. A lot of people already know about this. So it's something that you're going to be thinking about. And I've already heard some people joking about like, yeah, I'm going to like put this into my main deck like during the format. And I'm like, I don't know about all that, but like it's going to be something that people were more prepared for post sighting. So again, they're going to be like setting their trap cards beforehand. And it's really funny too. I just want to bring this up real fast. It's like a fun little story. The first time I saw this card, and I'm still relatively young, but I'm going to put some age on me. All right. Do you remember going back into like liquor stores and like there was a little, like you put a quarter in and it spits out a card in like cardboard.
Yeah.
And
the
so
stickers.
Yeah. But they're like, it came with the cards sometimes. And so like, I remember putting in a quarter and pulling it out, and this was the only card I ever got from it. And I read it and I was like, during my opponent's turn and end their turn, I was like, this is never going to happen. And then I like put it in the back of like the bottom of like the rubber band pile or something, right? Because I was like 7. But like at the same time, it's really funny because like when this popped up again, I had like that moment where I was like, oh wow, like, I haven't seen this card in years. But like it's pretty wild. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
I think that's part of what's beautiful about this game is like there is the like sometimes not having rotation can be kind of a pain in the ass, but like there's also these sorts of really weird interactions where it's like, yeah, for some reason Necomon King is like going to be it might be a relevant card, it might be a side deck choice or something. And you see these cards like just kind of come in and out that have been around for 15, 20 years, etc. I mean, Swap Frog, because of Sprite, became like, shot up in price, became a very meta relevant card. So these cards kind of come in and out because of the time when they were written, and at the time they didn't seem to make really any sense or be something that was going to be used. I'm sure that this card was just kind of a joke when it was made. They didn't really think about like, oh, stopping the Gishki hand loop or stopping an Ishizu tier limit turn. They could not have seen this in the future, but it did happen to have that sort of relevance. I think that's part of what I really love about this game.
Yeah, and a lot of people talk about like card design, like future card design, and really worrying about like what certain cards do. And I feel like I read cards that come out, and a lot of people are like, "Nah, that goes in like the bulk pile." And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, that card seems at some point it's gonna be kind of broken.
I've never even heard of this card. I didn't play with Gishki format. I'll be honest, like I didn't play that format, so I've never even heard of this card. But I think Eva mentioned it before we started the podcast. This is also really good into the Dark World stuff when that comes out, right? Or against the Dark World stuff. So I think it's kind of cool, to be honest.
Yeah, in the Dark World deck, because like if they're going full in on their combo, there's a lot of times where they're left with like 4 or 5 cards in their deck, so they probably have the Necomani King in their hand, and then like you use like I was playing a game where like I was playing Blackwing with the new support, and I had like a Blackwing Armor Master and a Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon that couldn't like break through the board. And then on my turn, I tried to use the Ultimate Falcon effect. They chained Grapha, discarded the Necomani King for cost, and then it just ended the turn. And then they were able to kill me on the Crackback.
That's crazy.
Even though it's an Ultimate Falcon effect, because it just like, that's just how it works with the mechanics.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is something that's like, I would definitely think that Dark World is going to play like just one copy of it. Just because if they have it in hand after they've gone full combo, there really isn't anything that is that's gonna stop you from ending that turn. So,
yeah, it's just interesting to see like old cards. Like I actually like had a thought like cards that have been good like forever in a sense just took a lot of erratas like Necro Valley. I don't know why like this whole conversation just got me thinking about Necro Valley because obviously it was in Ray's deck and it just literally just destroyed the whole format by itself, and it's like whatever deck ever put it in, it took a billion erratas and they just kept making it better and better and better and better compared to what it was when it was first released eons ago. And it's just crazy like old cards that you think okay they're only going to exist in their own archetype end up being just like absolutely like the answer to the format. Like literally if you're playing against tier, it was literally your answer. It shut off Ronin Tonin too. Like it did so many just random things that a card probably shouldn't do, but
the card text of that card literally says don't touch the graveyard.
Pretty much, yeah. No, it was ridiculous. It was the answer to Paleo. It was like an answer to so many things that like you just I mean when they eroded it again, it was just like you're kidding, right? Like this isn't real. And then you pick up the eroded version and you look at the old version, you're just like, geez, like it's like on roids or something. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see old cards like that.
That's what I've been doing with tier as well with Labyrinth, because I've been siding an End of Anubis into the deck because then like they can't target a card in the graveyard, and like the ends effects that activate are negated, and it's somewhat accessible because of like field spell and such. But it's really fun it's really funny when that card comes out, because it's like when has this seen play? So
Frognark, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I do want to thank everyone for being with me today. I know this is a bit of a longer episode here, but I do appreciate everyone's time. This has been a really cool time to just talk about the ban list. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now in the format. Everyone's still trying to figure out what's going on and what are the best decks, all the new tech cards and such. But thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Honestly, it's been a pleasure. Just wanting to just say that, and it's one thing to talk about the ban list, but it's another thing to be playing in the format. So we'll have to see how this format actually goes.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I
mean,
appreciate it.
Yeah, It's my first time meeting some of you guys, and it was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone have a great night. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.